Yesterday, I spent the day at a dairy farm to learn more about the whole milk industry for a YouTube video I'm doing, right? But I was immediately shocked by the fact that this dairy farm, even though it was small, was super complex as far as a business thing because, as Mark, the farmer who showed me around, explained, there's no money in dairy, so you have to make creative ways to make money. For example, this dairy makes money on tours, it makes money on food carts, it also makes money on the cheese that it makes and the restaurant it has on its site. But one of the most interesting ways this farm makes money is making vodka out of milk. Now, vodka can be made through a lot of ways. Traditionally, they use potatoes or grain. For example, Grey Goose actually uses wheat to make their vodka, but this farm actually makes their vodka out of the byproduct or the waste product of their cheese making process, the whey. Most cheeses are made through adding either an acid or this thing called rennet to milk, right? And what rennet is basically a bunch of enzymes gathered through the stomach lining of a baby animal. It's complicated, we're not gonna get into it. But when you add that acid or rennet into the milk, what you instantly see is gradually it starts to separate. The milk starts to get this like creamy white gelatin stuff, and then it starts to have all this like yellowy water. And that yellowy water is the whey, and that creamy stuff is the curd. And what I'm holding in my hand right now is actually their cheddar curds with like garlic and dill. I love cheese curds. It's very fresh. It's like a salty, vinegary glass of milk. It's very fresh. I like it a lot. But the big problem with cheese making is that when you make this curd, the vast majority of milk does not get converted to curd, but actually the vast majority of milk is this whey stuff. And so the big problem is, well, what do we do with all this waste product? Because that's most of it. Well, a lot of the time, what these cheese companies can do is actually convert this whey into whey protein powder, what we use for, supplements or through just getting buff, the stuff we all know, whey protein powder. But that's not the only thing you can do with whey. And one of the things you can do is actually ferment that whey and turn it into vodka. And that's what this company is doing. One of the first things I noticed when I was in their distillation room is that it smells disgusting. It's f***ing gross. Ooh, and it smells weird in here. Is that fermented whey that I'm smelling? Mm-hmm. It smells like rotten milk. Yep. Gross. Yeah. It smells gross. It's nasty. But the other thing I noticed when I bought this vodka is that it's a small bottle of vodka. It's how much is it? It's 375 milliliters. It's like it's small if you can see this on camera. But guess how much it costs? It's like $40. It's super expensive. And I asked them why it was so expensive, and they explained that it's expensive because it's a very inefficient way of making vodka. And that's because we have to look at what whey actually is. As I was researching this today, what I was surprised to know was that whey is not actually one thing. Whey is actually just a word that they use for the byproduct of this whole milk process. It's actually, whey is predominantly water. I think it's like 95 or 90% water. And then there's these very small amounts of proteins, fats, depending on what type of whey you have, and lactose or sugars. And if you know anything about alcohol production, the sugars is what you actually convert into alcohol, but the whey only has around 5% of these sugars. And so you're converting so much liquid into such a small amount of very, very potent alcohol. Actually, you distill it down to, I think, 195 proof alcohol, which is all alcohol, essentially, all ethanol. And then you dilute that with water. That's what vodka is, actually. So that's why it's so goddamn expensive. It's because it's just an insanely inefficient way of making vodka. So I asked them, why they make the vodka or why anyone would buy this vodka. And it's because this vodka actually does taste quite a bit different than vodka you'd try from, let's say, Grey Goose or other vodkas made from, let's say, potatoes or whatever. Now, as many of you know, I don't drink alcohol really. Very seldom I do. And so I'm probably the worst person to actually be the judge of this. But when I tried the vodka, the very first thought that I had was, do people say it tastes sweeter? Yep. That tastes like sweet and
you'll
smooth.
get a bite, get a bite, and then it goes down, it's pretty smooth.
It is kind of smooth compared to a lot.
Most vodkas will burn the crap out of you when it goes down. That was the whole idea, is to be a higher end vodka, so more of a sipping vodka.
The concept of a sipping vodka is like absolutely insane. I'm sure it's a common thing that people sip on high-end vodka, but that's just so gross to me. People who like sip on just whiskey, just only whiskey, I just find that like, what the That's so gross. Just put Coke in it or something. That's so nasty. But anyways, let's do an experiment. In my hand right here, I have this thing called Spiritus Wasoli. I got this in an alcohol store in LA. I'm pretty sure it's actually legal to be sold in LA, but it's essentially 96% alcohol. It's pure ethanol. I don't drink it. The only time I ever use it is like when I want to use pure ethanol for like some science experiment I'm doing or whatever. But yeah, it's 192 proof. It's absolutely insane. So let's dilute it down to around what vodka would be, which is around 40%. Oh my God, it smells like a hospital. Let's add a little bit more than half water. This is so not scientific. Oh my God. Okay, I'm done. That's gross. Now this stuff is distilled using grain. Now let's compare it to the whey. It smells sweeter. It has the smallest hint of rotting milk and like the sweetness of rotting milk. It's not unpleasant, weirdly enough. Okay. Oh, very different though. The vodka made from whey tastes creamier. Like it really does have hints of like a sweet creaminess. Almost like vanilla. I don't know why I would think of that, but it's smoother. It doesn't burn as much, and it just smells sweeter. So yeah, vodka made from whey. It's a thing. Pretty cool thing. And it's definitely one of those things that after I was exposed to it, it really makes you think about how when people will spend a lot of money for certain things like alcoholic beverages that are, you know, made from a certain type of ingredient and made in a certain way, blah, 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 right? People are totally okay with spending a ton of money on this whiskey that had a priest shit on it or something, but this kind of vodka made from whey almost gives off like a gimmick vibe, but I don't really think it is. I think it really should be branded more as something quite high end because it's vodka that is very expensive to make, and it actually offers the consumer a different experience that's easier and smoother. So I don't know, makes you really think about how bullshit branding is and all that. But yeah, if you're ever in Canby, Oregon, I strongly recommend you go to the TMK Creamery and take a tour of their dairy farm. It's amazing. They're such amazing people. They're so sweet, very knowledgeable. They're great.